I've got a submission here from Izord. Uh, and I checked the data you gave me. You're using LuxFloat PID Controller 2. I noticed that P gains, your P gains are actually completely within the normal range for LuxFloat on 1.9. I haven't personally flown it or tuned it, but I have noticed from looking at the videos in this thread, it looks like people who are using Boris's Lux V2 is what people are calling it, which is what you're using since you're on beta flight. Uh, it looks like they're coming in with somewhat lower P gains in the range of around maybe even as low as zero point 0.6 to a 1.2 or 1.5. So I wonder if it's going to turn out that your P gains are a little high. I'm not going to expound on this much, but I would say the same thing to you, and you're just using the defaults. Obviously, this is obviously what the defaults are, but I would say the same thing to you that I said in the previous video about maybe trying gyro cut of 100 with a slightly higher D term and P term cut and see if that gives you better results. Um, there's no one right answer here, and there's no reason to assume that this is going to be the best for everybody. If you don't have a very, very clean copter, I have a feeling that this is going to turn out to not maybe work the best and you might need a little more filtering. So fine. Let's take a look at this section of your log. And I don't know if it's coming through in my playback, which is then going into my microphone, but there's a sort of a constant oscillation in the motors. I'll play it again. You can hear a constant sort of high frequency oscillation in the motors, and that's also consistent with a possibly excess P gain. We would want to look and see if we were seeing a lot of oscillation here in the P term trace. And it's a little hard to tell. And here's a big oscillation in the pitch trace. Let's have a look at what that. Yeah, it doesn't really. And you can also see after you do that sharp little move that there's a little bit of ringing here at the end of the move, which it's not even a very big move. That little roll move you we'll watch it again. We'll watch it maybe at 50% speed. It's not even a really big move, and you've got a little bit of ringing after it. So this all feels to me like a copter that's just slightly overtuned, just on the edge of being overtuned. It's possible. So I think I would try knocking your P. There's this tendency to try and tune P too high, to try and run it right up to the edge of oscillations to being completely overtuned, and it doesn't necessarily make it fly better. I mean, if we were flying line of sight, this might be a little more acceptable because we wouldn't be seeing and hearing every little oscillation in the camera, and we could maybe take advantage of that sharper response. But in this case, I would probably knock pitch and roll down by maybe zero point 0.2 and see if that makes it maybe even a little more than zero point 0.2 because they're like I said they're maybe a little higher than I'm used to seeing other people's. But try knocking both pitch and roll down by maybe zero point 0.2. But I'm not convinced that all of that noise and that sort of oscillation that we're seeing in the background here, I'm not convinced that it's all P term. If we look at the roll axis is usually where you're going to find oscillation if you're going to find it, because and there's some, especially after that move, but it's not crazy and it's not constant. It doesn't strike me as like really insane. So it does make me wonder if there's something going on with your D that is getting out into the motors. And that's where that filtering, try a different filtering setting like I described and see if that helps at all. Now here's the section where you go to full throttle. Let's see how the copter responds to that. And I have to say, listening to the motors, it doesn't sound bad. It doesn't start oscillating and like shaking itself apart. So it does. I wonder if maybe you've got high TPA. Let's see if you posted that at all. TPA breakpoint 1450, TPA rate 45. Okay, so that's my guess. 1450. My guess is that the reason for that is that TPA is pulling down the rates. And with a TPA rate of 45%, then what we're going to see at max throttle is that these numbers are going to come down. It's a reduction of 45%. 1 minus 0.45 is 0.55 times 2.1. So your pitch is coming down to about 1.1. And so the fact that you're got this tiny ringing after a relatively minor roll move, not even anything big or huge or like a real double roll, just a little bobble 20 degrees to the left. You got ringing there, and we're hearing this kind of constant background oscillation, like the copter is just on the edge of being overtuned. When you're at low throttle, 1200, 1300 throttle, but then you punch it to full throttle, and you don't see any exacerbation of that problem. So that tells us that your probably TPA is fixing that, and that supports the hypothesis that the things that are going on the rest of the time are excess P gain. And here we see you're back down around 1300 throttle, so TPA isn't even kicking in here. And watch what's happening here on your pitch axis. See, now P term is it's oscillating again. So there you go. I really think your P gains are a little too high, and they need to be knocked back a little bit. Also, I know it's really hard to judge just from looking at the traces, and that a D term trace that looks dirty can actually fly well. But I think you owe it to yourself to at least try a gyro cut of 100 and maybe a P term cut of 50 and a D term cut of maybe 10 or 12. Just try playing with those. Don't assume that gyro cut of 0 is going to fly the best for everybody. Going from gyro cut of 0 to gyro cut of 100, it's something like a millisecond of delay. So very little delay. Meanwhile, going from D term cut of 8 to D term cut of 10, it's like 5 milliseconds of delay. I have the table that I posted. I don't even remember which thread I posted it to. I'm just pulling these numbers out of my memory. But the lower you go, it's nonlinear, the delay. So you suffer very little penalty by adding gyro cut of 100, and you get better filtering for some of this high frequency noise. So I think that's worth a try. Alrighty, that's what I got. Happy flying.